Hey everybody, Mr. Roper here. In this video, we're going to talk about how to write an equation for a perpendicular bisector. All right, so that word perpendicular bisector tells us two things, and that's kind of the two steps that we need to know, or two things we need to find out in order to write this equation. Okay, so bisector means that the line is going to cut our segment into two equal parts. So to do that, the line has to go through the midpoint. So we have to find the coordinates of the midpoint. We have a midpoint formula, so we can use that. Step two now, perpendicular, right? We know it has to form a 90-degree angle with the segment. So we have to find the slope of the segment so that then we can apply kind of the perpendicular lines and slopes, how they're related. And we know that two lines that are perpendicular, they have opposite reciprocal slopes, okay? So we're gonna find the midpoint, then we're gonna find the slope, and then we're gonna use the opposite reciprocal slope and the midpoint to write an equation in slope-intercept form, okay? So here we go. We're going to write an equation of the perpendicular bisector of the segment with endpoints 5, -1 and -11, 3. Okay, so step one here, we want to find the midpoint. So the midpoint formula is basically just add your two x coordinates together and divide by 2. So I'm going to say -11 plus 5 over 2. That'd be my x coordinates, and then let's do 3 plus -1 over 2. Okay, so -11 plus 5 gives me -6 over 2. And then that would essentially be 3 minus 1, so 2 over 2. And this simplifies. -6 divided by 2 would be -3, and 2 over 2 is 1. Okay, so there's my midpoint, right? That point right there. So I'm just going to leave that there for now. I'm going to use it here in just a minute. Now step two, we want to find the slope of the line, or the slope of the segment. So our slope formula, m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, or the change in y divided by the change in x. Okay, so I'm going to say slope is equal to 3 minus -1 divided by -11 minus 5. Okay, so 3 minus -1 would be 3 plus 1, which is 4, and -11 minus 5 would be -16. And now we can simplify that to -1/4. Okay, so we know that is the slope, right? Now we want to take in step 3 and we want to write our equation. Okay, so our equation is going to be in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. But the slope that we're going to do needs to be perpendicular to the slope that we just found of our segment. Okay, so perpendicular means opposite reciprocal. So the opposite of -1/4 is 1/4, and the reciprocal would be 4. So I'm going to plug 4 in for m. And so now we still have three variables, right? We still have x, y, and b, but we know what point we want this line to pass through. We want it to pass through the midpoint. So now we can use this midpoint right here, and we can plug in for x and y. We can say 1 is y and -3 is x. And now we just solve this equation for b. So we get 1 equals -12 plus b. And we then add 12 to both sides. So we get 13 is equal to b. And we know m, right? We plugged m into our equation right there as 4. So now we can say y equals 4x plus 13. And that is how we find the equation of a perpendicular bisector.